Somewhere tonight, a video was made to reach 1 million strangers. This is not that video. This one reached you, and that is the first thing worth sitting with for a moment. Because out of everything that was competing for your attention right now, out of every louder thumbnail and every faster promise, out of 1,000 things that were engineered to pull you somewhere else, you stopped here. You stayed. Something in you leaned in. And if you believe nothing else for the next hour, you can at least believe that small, strange fact. Out of all the noise, you found this. Most of what you watch was built for everyone. It was shaped to fit as many people as possible, smoothed down until it could belong to no one in particular. But every so often, something arrives that feels like it was left, not broadcast, left. The way a letter is left on a kitchen table for one specific person to find. And the quiet truth of this hour is that what you are about to hear was assembled, slowly, over a very long time, by a source you have never seen but have felt your entire life. The source did not sign its name, it rarely does, but it left you a message, and it left no one else the same one. I know how that sounds. I know the part of you that has been trained to flinch at anything that promises to speak to you personally, because so many things have made that promise and delivered nothing but a sales pitch. So let me be honest with you before we go any further. There is nothing to buy here. There is no secret being withheld until the end. There is only this. A long look at the thing you have spent your whole life inside of and almost never stopped to see. The people, the ones who made you, the ones who left, the ones you are still lucky enough to reach, and the ones you keep meaning to call and somehow never do. Before we go deeper, one thing. If any part of this reaches you tonight, the way it was meant to, then subscribe, because I make these quiet, long-form pieces every week, and the next one is already being written for whoever needs it. That is the only thing I will ask of you in this entire hour. One click so the source can find you again when it has something else to say. Now let us begin, because the message starts where you started, long before you have any memory of being here at all. Think about how improbable you are. Not in the vague greeting card way people say it, but really think about it. For you to be sitting where you are right now, breathing, watching this, an unbroken chain of people had to meet, every single link. Two people you will never picture had to cross paths in a specific year, in a specific place, and decide to stay in the same room long enough to make one more person, and then their children had to do the same, and theirs. Go back 10 generations, and you are looking at more than 1,000 people who all, without knowing your name, without any idea you would ever exist, did the exact thing at the exact time that eventually produced you. Go back further, and the number becomes something the mind cannot hold. Tens of thousands of ancestors, most of whom lived and suffered and loved and died in places you will never visit, speaking languages you will never learn, and not one of them was optional. Remove any single one, break the chain at any single point, change one decision on one ordinary afternoon in some century you have never thought about, and you are simply gone. You were never here. The chair you are sitting in is empty. Nobody misses you because there is no you to miss. Somewhere back there, a woman survived a winter she should not have survived. Somewhere a man walked further than he thought he could and lived one more day. Somewhere, two strangers who spoke different languages found a reason to trust each other. Somewhere a child who nearly died of a fever pulled through in the dark while someone sat awake beside the bed, refusing to sleep, refusing to give up. You are the far end of 10,000 nights like that. You are what all of it was quietly building toward, whether anyone knew it or not. And here is the part the source wants you to feel, not just understand. Every one of those people was, at some point, exactly as alive as you are right now. They were not faded photographs. They were not history. They woke up on ordinary mornings with their own worries, their own small joys, their own regrets that kept them up at night. They had people they meant to call and never did. They had words they meant to say and swallowed instead. They were as real as your own hands. And now they are the reason your hands exist. That is the first message. You were never alone here, not even before you arrived. You were carried the entire way. But let us come forward, out of the deep past, to the part of your story you also cannot remember, though it happened to you directly. The beginning, because before you had a single memory, before you could hold your own head up or say a single word, you were kept alive entirely by other people. Every hour, for years, someone chose you over sleep. Someone chose you over rest, over quiet, over their own exhaustion, over 100 easier lives they could have been living. You did nothing to earn it. You could not have. You had no charm yet, no accomplishments, nothing to offer in return. You were kept alive purely because you existed, and someone decided that was enough. Picture it, even if you cannot remember it. The middle of the night, some year you were far too young to hold on to. You are crying, and you do not know why, and you have no way to explain it. And someone gets up, again, in the dark, their body aching for sleep, their patience worn down to almost nothing, and still they get up, and they cross the cold floor, and they lift you, and they hold you until the crying stops. Not once, hundreds of times, thousands. A quiet, invisible labor that no one filmed, no one thanked, and that you will never fully remember. But it happened. It is the only reason you are here to doubt it. Maybe the person who did that for you was a mother, maybe a father, maybe a grandmother whose hands you can still picture, whose voice you can still hear if you go quiet enough. Maybe it was someone who was not related to you at all, who stepped into a gap that someone else left and loved you anyway. And maybe, for some of you watching, it was not enough. Maybe the person who was supposed to do that for you did not, or could not, and you have carried that absence your whole life like a stone in your chest. If that is you, the source has something to say to you too, and we will get there, but not yet. For now, sit with the fact that you survived the most helpless years of your life, and you survived them because of someone else. There is a strange grief that lives inside gratitude, and many people never name it. It is the quiet realization that the people who kept you alive were doing the hardest work of their lives during the exact years you are least able to remember. They gave you the most, and you can thank them the least, because your memory had not switched on yet. By the time you were old enough to notice them, to really see them as people, they were already tired, already older, already partway through their own story, which had begun long before you and had nothing to do with you at first. That is worth stopping on. The people who raised you existed before you. They had entire lives you never saw. Your mother was once a girl with dreams that had nothing to do with becoming your mother. Your father was once a young man who was afraid of things, who wanted things, who failed at things, decades before you arrived to think of him as simply Dad. The people you reduced, as all children do, to their role in your life were never only that role. They were whole. They were as complicated and frightened and hopeful as you are right now. And you met them already halfway through. Somewhere there is a photograph of one of your parents at an age younger than you are now, and if you look at it long enough, something breaks open, because in that photo they do not know yet. They do not know what is coming. They do not know about you. They are just a person, standing in some year, squinting into the sun, with their whole difficult, beautiful life still ahead of them. And everything they would go through, every disappointment and every loss, was still unwritten. Looking at that photograph is one of the closest things we have to time travel. It lets you meet them as an equal, as one person looking at another, instead of a child looking up. The source wants you to do that. To see the people who shaped you, not as fixed monuments in your life, but as fellow travelers who happened to arrive a little earlier and were assigned to carry you for a while. Because the moment you see them that way, something shifts. The resentment you may be holding gets more complicated, the gratitude gets deeper, and the clock, which you have been ignoring, becomes very hard to ignore. Now, let us move to the people you actually remember, the friends. Because if the family you were born into was chosen for you, the friends you gathered along the way were the first people you chose for yourself. And the friendships of your life form a hidden map of who you have been, stretched across the years like a trail of small fires, some still burning, most gone cold. Think back to the first friend you can remember, the very first. Someone from a time so early that they exist now only in fragments, in a specific smell or a specific sound or a feeling you cannot quite place. You spent what felt like forever together, in the way that time stretches when you are small. You told them things. You built entire worlds together in an afternoon. And then, most likely, life simply moved one of you somewhere else, and it ended without ending, the way childhood friendships almost always do. No fight, no goodbye, just a slow fade, until one day you realized you had not thought of them in years. Where are they now? That first friend. They are a whole adult person somewhere, with a job and worries and a face you would not recognize. They carry a version of you inside them, a small child version that only they remember, and you carry a version of them. Two people walking around the world, holding tiny museums of each other, almost certainly never to meet again. And there were dozens of people like that. Friends from every era of your life who mattered enormously for a season and then quietly slipped off the edge of your daily world. Here is something the source wants you to notice, because almost no one does. Most of your friendships did not end. They just stopped being tended. There was no final conversation, no decision, no falling out. There was just a last time you saw each other that neither of you knew was the last time. A last hangout, a last long phone call, a last shared laugh about something that will never be funny to anyone else on earth. It happened, and it passed, and it was ordinary, and it was the end. You did not get to say goodbye because you did not know it was goodbye. That is how most of the important exits in your life will happen. Not with a door slamming, but with a door quietly left open that no one ever walks back through. And that should not make you sad, or at least not only sad, it should make you pay attention, because right now, today, you are in the middle of last times you do not recognize. Some conversation you will have this week is the last real conversation you will ever have with someone, and you will not know it. Some ordinary Tuesday is the final Tuesday of a friendship, and it will look exactly like every other Tuesday. The source is not telling you this to frighten you, it is telling you this so you will look up, so you will, for once, be present for the thing while it is still happening, instead of only understanding it once it is gone. There is a particular kind of friend the source wants to talk about now. The one who drifted away not because of distance, but because of something unsaid. Maybe there was a small hurt that neither of you addressed. Maybe one of you needed the other, and the other was not there, and it was never spoken about, but it changed things. Maybe you both just got busy, and busy became distant, and distant became strangers, and now too much time has passed, and reaching out feels almost embarrassing. What would you even say? Where would you even start? You are thinking of a specific person right now. I can feel it. The source arranged for that. Someone floated up in your mind as I was speaking. A name, a face, someone you used to be close to and are not anymore. And something in your chest tightened just a little. Stay with that person for a moment. Do not push them away, because here is what you have been telling yourself. You have been telling yourself that too much time has passed, that it would be weird, that they have probably moved on and would not even want to hear from you. And the source wants you to know that almost every version of that story you have built in your head is wrong. The truth about the people you have drifted from is that they are, at this very moment, telling themselves the same story about you. They think you moved on. They think reaching out would be weird. They think you would not want to hear from them. And so two people who genuinely cared about each other sit on opposite sides of a silence that neither of them wanted, each one waiting for the other to break it, each one certain it should not be them. That silence is not made of anger. It is made of fear and pride and the simple, stupid weight of who reaches out first. And it can be ended in about 10 seconds by a single message that says nothing more than, "I was thinking about you today." We will come back to that message before this is over. Hold on to it. For now, let us go to the room in your life that many people keep locked, The one behind the door you walk past quickly. Love, the romantic kind. The kind that has probably caused you more joy and more damage than almost anything else in your life. Somewhere in your past there is a person who taught you what it felt like to be chosen. Maybe you are still with them, maybe they are long gone. But there was a first time you understood that another human being could look at you, all of you, the parts you liked and the parts you hid, and decide they wanted you anyway. That feeling, when it is real, is one of the few things in this life that lives up to the promises made about it. And if you have felt it, even once, even briefly, even if it later fell apart, you have touched something that every one of your 10,000 ancestors was reaching for too. But the source is not going to pretend love is only the good part, because you would stop trusting me if I did. There is also the other side, the heartbreak, the person who chose you and then unchose you, the relationship that felt like home right up until it didn't, the slow, confusing unraveling of something you thought was solid, and the specific loneliness of lying next to someone who has already left, even though they are still physically there. If you have lived long enough to love, you have almost certainly lived long enough to be broken by it, and you carry those breaks. You carry them into the next relationship, and the one after that, whether you mean to or not. Here is what the source wants to say about the people who hurt you in love. Some of them meant to, and you are allowed to stop making excuses for them. But most of them did not. Most of them were just as lost as you were, fumbling through something no one ever actually teaches us how to do, carrying their own old wounds from their own old heartbreaks, doing damage they did not fully understand, because it had been done to them first. That does not make it hurt less. It does not mean you have to forgive them, or stay, or ever speak to them again. But it might mean you can finally set down the belief that there was something uniquely broken about you that made it happen. There wasn't. You were loving another wounded person, the only kind of person there is. And if you are the one who did the hurting, the source has not forgotten you either. Somewhere in your past there is a person you were not good to. Someone who loved you more than you loved them, or someone you left carelessly, or someone you lied to, or someone you simply were not ready for and hurt on your way to figuring that out. You know exactly who I mean. You have thought about them tonight already, and you have been carrying a quiet, private guilt about it for a long time. A guilt you have never spoken out loud to anyone. The source wants you to know that carrying it forever helps no one, least of all the person you hurt. What helps, if it is possible, is honesty. And what helps, if honesty is not possible, is becoming the kind of person who would never do it again. That is the only real apology anyone ever makes. Not the words, the change. Now we come to the harder ground. The people you are angry at, because you have them. Everyone does. There is at least one person, maybe more, who wronged you in a way you have never fully let go of. Someone who betrayed you, or abandoned you, or said the thing that cannot be unsaid, or did the thing that changed the shape of your life without your permission. And you have been carrying that anger, maybe for years, maybe for decades, telling yourself that holding on to it is a form of justice, that if you forgive, you let them win, that your anger is the only thing keeping the wound acknowledged. The source understands why you believe that. It is one of the most natural beliefs a hurt person can have, but it wants to gently offer you something you may not have considered. The person you are angry at is, in almost every case, not experiencing your anger at all. They are living their life. They sleep fine. They have moved on, or they never noticed, or they justified it long ago and think about it rarely, if ever. Your anger, which you have been carrying like a debt they owe you, is a debt they do not even know exists. You are the only one paying it, every day, with your peace. That is a hard thing to hear, and the source is not telling you to forgive because the person deserves it. Some of them do not. Some of what was done to you was genuinely unforgivable by any reasonable measure, and if that is your situation, no stranger in a video gets to tell you to let it go. But there is a difference between forgiveness and release. Forgiveness is something you might offer another person. Release is something you do for yourself. You can release the grip of an old wound without ever excusing the person who caused it. You can set the stone down without pretending it was never thrown. And the moment you understand that the two are different, a door opens that you thought was locked forever. Let us slow down here, because the source knows this next part touches some of you very directly. Some of you were hurt not by a stranger, not by a lover, but by the very people who were supposed to keep you safe. A parent who should have protected you and didn't. A family that failed you in ways that shaped everything after. If that is you, everything I said earlier about the invisible labor of raising a child may have landed strangely, because your experience was different, and I am not going to smooth over that. Here is what the source wants to say to you, specifically. The fact that you were not given what you needed is not a verdict on your worth. It never was. A child who is not loved well does not become unlovable. They become someone who had to learn the hard way how to love themselves without a template. That is one of the loneliest jobs a person can be handed, and if you are doing it or trying to, the source sees the enormous quiet courage in that. You are, in a sense, breaking a chain that was handed to you already broken. You are becoming the person you needed, so that someone after you, a child, a friend, a partner, a stranger, will not have to become it alone. That is not a small thing. That may be the most important thing a human being can do. And you do not have to reconcile with anyone to do it. The source is not asking you to call the person who harmed you. Sometimes the healthiest, most loving thing you can do for yourself is to keep a door closed. Boundaries are not cruelty. Distance is not always failure. Sometimes the most honest relationship you can have with someone is no relationship at all, held with a kind of quiet peace rather than a burning grudge. If that is where you have landed with someone, you are allowed to be there, and you are allowed to stop apologizing for it. Now let us turn toward the heaviest room in the house, and the source will be gentle here, because everyone who lives long enough ends up standing in it. Loss. The people who are gone. Not drifted away, not estranged, but gone in the way that has no reply. Because if you have been on this earth for any real length of time, you have lost someone. And you know that grief is not one feeling. It is a whole weather system that moves through you for the rest of your life, sometimes as a gentle rain you barely notice, sometimes as a storm that arrives out of nowhere on an ordinary afternoon and knocks you flat. There is a person you lost who you are thinking about right now, maybe more than one. The source did not have to arrange that. Grief arranges itself, and I want you to hold that person in your mind for the next few minutes, because there are things about your loss that you may never have let yourself fully feel, and this is a safe place to feel them. The first thing is this: you did not get to say everything. Almost no one does. Death, when it comes, almost never waits for the conversation to be finished. There were things you meant to tell them. There was a thank you assumed you had time for. There was maybe an apology, or a question, or just one more ordinary hour that you did not know was the last one. And you have been carrying the weight of those unsaid things, replaying the final days, wishing you had known, wishing you had said it. The source wants to lift some of that weight off you tonight, if it can. Here is the truth about the things you did not say. They knew, not all of them, not in words, but the important ones. They knew. The love that lives between two people who spent real time together does not depend on a final speech. It was built over years, in 1,000 ordinary moments you have forgotten because they seem too small to remember at the time. The meal you shared, the ride in the car, the joke only the two of you understood, the way they said your name. That love was communicated constantly, in a language deeper than words, and it did not need a perfect ending to be real. You did not fail them by running out of time. Time simply ran out, the way it always does, and the love was already complete long before the words stopped. And the second thing the source wants you to know about your grief is stranger and more comforting than people expect. The person you lost is not entirely gone, and this is not a religious claim, though you are welcome to hold it as one. It is a plain observation about how human beings work. You carry them. Their phrases live in your mouth. Their habits live in your hands. The way you laugh, the way you cook a certain thing, the way you handle a certain kind of trouble, some of that is not yours. It was theirs, and they gave it to you, and now it moves through the world in you. You are, in a real and literal sense, a place where they continue. And every time you pass a piece of them on to someone else, a child, a friend, a stranger who will never know their name, they travel one more generation forward. That is not nothing. That is close to everything. Sit with your person for one more moment. And then, when you are ready, let the source ask you the question the whole hour has been building toward. If they knew, if the ones who are gone could see you right now, sitting here, carrying them, still loving them across a distance that has no bridge, what would they want for you? Would they want you frozen in the loss? Would they want your life to have narrowed down to the shape of their absence? Or would they want you to go and do the one thing they can no longer do? To live, to reach the people who are still reachable, to not repeat the mistake of assuming there is always more time, because that is the message, that is the whole message, and everything so far has just been clearing the ground for it. The source did not assemble 10,000 years of people just to make you feel small or grateful or sad. It did it to bring you, tonight, to a single realization while there is still time to act on it. And the realization is this: the most important relationships in your life are not settled, they are not finished. They are still open right now, in this moment, for as long as this moment lasts. And you have been treating them as if they were permanent fixtures that would always be there, when in truth they are the most temporary and precious things you will ever be given. Think about the people who are still here, still reachable, still one phone call away. Your parents, if you are lucky enough to still have them. Old friends, the sibling you love but never talk to. The person who raised you. The person who has quietly loved you for years without ever quite hearing you say it back. They are not gone. They are right there. And the only thing standing between you and them is the same thing that always stands there. The assumption that you will get around to it later, when things calm down, when you are less busy, when the moment is right. The source wants to tell you something about that later, the one you keep depositing everything into. There is a specific number of times you will see each person you love again, and it is much, much smaller than you think. If you live in a different city from your parents, and you see them a few times a year, and they are getting older, then the number of times you will sit across a table from them for the rest of your life is not infinite. It is not even large. You could probably count it, and you have never counted it, because counting it is unbearable, and so you have let yourself believe it is endless. It is not endless. Almost nothing is. That ordinary phone call you keep meaning to make, the one to the parent, the grandparent, the old friend, the person you drifted from, you have been treating it as optional, as something that can slide to next week without cost. But the source wants you to understand what it actually is. It is one of a finite, shrinking number of chances to close a distance while closing it is still possible. It is not small, it is not a chore. It is one of the last purely good things left in a complicated world, the chance to reach another human being and let them know they are held in someone's mind. And you keep not making it. Not because you do not love them, because you assume the chance will keep. It will not keep. Chances do not keep. That is the one thing they are guaranteed not to do. Let me tell you what the source is not asking. It is not asking you to fix everything tonight. It is not asking you to heal every wound, reconcile with every enemy, resurrect every dead friendship in a single evening. That would be a fantasy, and fantasies do not change lives. The source is asking for something much smaller and much more real. One reach. Tonight or tomorrow, one person out of everyone who has floated through your mind in the last hour, and one small act of closing distance, a message, a call, a visit, a sentence spoken out loud that you have been carrying silently. Just one. That is the entire assignment. And you already know who it is. You have known since about 10 minutes into this. A name has been sitting at the front of your mind, patiently, the whole time, waiting for you to admit it. Maybe it is a parent you have been short with. Maybe it is a friend you let go. Maybe it is someone you owe an apology, or someone you never thanked, or someone who simply needs to hear that they matter and has not heard it from you in far too long. The source did not choose that person. You did. Some part of you that is wiser than your excuses has already selected them. All that is left is for you to listen to it. I want to say something now to the ones who are afraid it is too late. Some of you are thinking, the person I would reach is gone. The chance I am being told not to waste, I already wasted. The call I should have made, I did not make, and now there is no number left to dial. If that is you, the source has not left you out of this message. It saved something for you, and here it is. The love you did not get to deliver does not disappear. It has to go somewhere, and you get to decide where. You can spend the rest of your life letting it curdle into regret, or you can redirect it. You can take the words you never got to say to the one who is gone and say them to someone who is still here. You can become, for someone else, the presence you wish you had been. That is not a consolation prize. That is how the dead keep loving the world. Through the people they left behind who decided to do better. There is a kind of grace available to you tonight that many people go their whole lives without ever accepting. It is the grace of being allowed to start now, not yesterday when you should have. Not 10 years ago when it would have been easier. Now, this exact ordinary evening, in whatever room you are sitting in, with whatever regrets you are carrying, the source does not require you to have earned it. It does not hold your past against you. It only asks that you turn, from this moment forward, toward the people while you still have them, instead of only toward their memory once you don't. Let us go back to that person you have been thinking about, the living one, the one you could reach. I want you to picture, in detail, what it would actually be like. You pick up your phone, you find their name, and you send the message, or you make the call, and you say the true thing. I was thinking about you. I miss you. I am sorry. I am proud of you. Thank you for everything. I love you, and I do not say it enough. Whatever the true thing is for you and for them, picture their face when they receive it. Picture the surprise, and then the warmth, and then the way something unlocks between you that had been stuck for far too long. Now notice something. Nothing about that scene is impossible. Nothing about it requires money, or luck, or permission, or the right conditions. It requires only that you be brave for about 30 seconds. That is the entire cost. 30 seconds of being slightly uncomfortable, of risking that it might be awkward, of setting down your pride and your fear of how it will land. 30 seconds, in exchange for possibly repairing one of the most important connections in your life. The source has done the math on that trade a great many times, across a great many lives, and it has never once seen it come out badly. The people who reach the end of their lives, the ones who have run out of laters, almost never regret the risks they took to love people more openly. They regret the opposite. They regret the calls they did not make, the words they held back, the pride they protected instead of the person they loved. They regret the distances they let harden because reaching across them felt too vulnerable. Not one of them, at the end, wishes they had been more guarded. They wish they had been braver. They wish they had said it, all of it, out loud, while the person was still there to hear it. You have the thing they wish they still had. You have time, not infinite time, not guaranteed time, but some. Right now, tonight, you have a window that is still open, and people in it who are still reachable, and a voice that still works, and hands that can still type a message, and a heart that, whatever it has been through, is still capable of reaching toward another one. That is not a small inheritance. That is the entire fortune that 10,000 ancestors spent themselves to hand you. The capacity to love, and someone still here to spend it on. Do not let it sit in the bank until it is too late to withdraw. The source wants to correct one thing you may have picked up somewhere along the way, a quiet lie that has probably cost you more than you know. The lie is that vulnerability is weakness, that reaching out first is losing. That the person who cares more, who says it first, who breaks the silence, has somehow given up the higher position. That is exactly backwards, and the fear it creates has kept more good people apart than almost anything else. The one who reaches first is not the weaker one. They are the braver one. They are the one strong enough to risk not being reached back. And in almost every case, they are reached back because the other person was waiting the whole time, too afraid to go first themselves. Think of how much of your life has been governed by that fear of going first. The apologies you did not offer because you were waiting for theirs. The affection you did not show because you were not sure it would be returned. The reconciliations that never happened because both people were standing at the same locked door, each waiting for the other to knock. Somewhere out there is a person who would give almost anything to hear from you and who has spent years assuming you do not think of them, when the truth is you think of them often, and neither of you has said so. The source is asking you to be the one who knocks. Not because it is easy, because someone has to, and the ones who wait for someone else usually wait until it is too late. Let us talk about presence, because reaching out once is only the beginning, and the source does not want to send you away with a single grand gesture that lets you off the hook for everything after. The deeper message underneath all of this is not about one dramatic reconnection. It is about how you show up from now on in the ordinary moments that make up almost all of a life. Because here is a fact that will change how you see your own days if you let it. The big moments are not where love actually lives. Love lives in the small ones, the unremarkable Tuesday, the passing question about someone's day that you actually wait to hear the answer to. The 5 minutes of real attention instead of half attention while looking at a screen. You have been giving the people you love the leftovers of your attention. Almost everyone has. You are physically present but mentally somewhere else, nodding along while scrolling, half listening while planning your reply, sharing a room with someone you love, while giving them the scraps of a mind that is really elsewhere. And here is the cruel arithmetic of it. Those distracted, half-present moments are not rehearsals for the real relationship. They are the relationship. That is what it is actually made of. The ordinary hours are not filler between the important moments. They are the important moments, and you have been sleepwalking through most of them. The source is asking you to wake up inside your own life. Not to do more, not to add another task to your endless list, but to actually be present for the things you are already doing with the people you already have. The next time someone you love is talking to you, put the phone down. Not for them, for you. Because you are running out of times to hear that voice, and you have been treating each one as if there were a limitless supply. There is not. There is a last time you will hear every voice you love, and you almost never know it when it comes, and the only protection against the pain of that is to have been truly present for the times before it. I know some of you are tired. I know that for some of you, the reason you have not reached out, the reason you are half present, is not carelessness, but exhaustion. Life has been grinding you down. You are stretched thin across work and worry and 100 obligations, and the idea of finding the energy to be more present, more loving, more brave, feels like one more demand from a world that already asks too much. The source sees that too, and it is not here to shame you. It is here to remind you of something you may have forgotten in the grind. These people, these relationships, are not another item on the list of things draining you. They are the thing the list is supposed to be for. They are the point. Everything else, the work, the money, the endless logistics, is in service of this, or it is in service of nothing. Somewhere along the way, many people quietly invert it. The means become the end. The work that was supposed to support the life becomes the life, and the people it was supposed to be for become the interruption, the thing you will get to once the work is finally done. But the work is never finally done. That is its nature. It will expand to fill every hour you give it, and it will still not be done on the day you run out of days. The source is asking you to invert it back, to remember that no one, at the end, wishes they had spent more time on the work and less on the people. The regret runs entirely the other direction, without exception, in every life that has ever reached its final, honest reckoning. Before we come down from the height of all this, the Source wants to open a few more rooms, because there are people in your life it has not named yet, and some of them are the ones you think about least and owe the most. Let us talk about the sibling. If you have one, or had one, then you have a relationship unlike any other you will ever have, and you have almost certainly taken it for granted, because a sibling is the only person who was there for the beginning with you. They knew the house you grew up in. They knew the parents you had before those parents got old. They remember the specific weather of your childhood, the private jokes, the fears, the version of your family that no one outside those walls ever saw. When you are gone, and when they are gone, that entire world goes with you, because you too are the last living witnesses to it. No one else on earth remembers it. No one else ever will. And yet siblings drift like everyone else, sometimes worse, because the closeness of childhood can curdle into the strange competitive silence of adulthood. You compare lives. You keep score without meaning to. Old wounds from when you were young, the favoritism, the fights over nothing, the way one of you was cast as the responsible one and the other as the difficult one. Those roles harden and follow you into your 40s and 50s as if they were still true. Maybe you talk a few times a year now, politely, carefully, two adults who used to share a bedroom and now barely share a life. The Source finds this one of the quietest tragedies there is, because it is so fixable and so rarely fixed. If you have a sibling you have grown distant from, understand what you are actually letting slip away. Not just a person, but the only other keeper of your earliest self. There will come a day when you want to remember something about your childhood, some detail only they would know, and they will not be reachable to ask. The Source is telling you now so that day does not have to be full of regret. Reach the sibling, not with a grand reconciliation, if that is too much, just with a small door left open, a memory sent, a question asked, something that says the world we came from still matters to me, and so do you. Now the Source wants to talk about a whole category of people you have probably never properly thanked, because they were never central enough to notice and never absent enough to miss. Call it the invisible cast. The teacher who saw something in you before you saw it in yourself and said one sentence that you still carry decades later and who has no idea they did it. The coach, the neighbor, the parent of a friend, the stranger who was kind at exactly the moment you needed kindness and then vanished from your life forever. The person who gave you a chance you did not deserve yet. The one who noticed you were struggling when you thought no one could tell. Your life is quietly held up by dozens of people like that. Most of them will never know the size of what they gave you because you never told them, because at the time it seemed too small to mention, and by the time you understood its size, they were gone from your daily world. There is a teacher out there, right now, growing old, who changed the direction of your entire life with a single act of belief and has spent years assuming they made no difference to anyone. You could change that with one letter, one message that finds them and says, "You may not remember me, but I have never forgotten what you did." The Source promises you that almost nothing you can do with your time will matter more to another human being than that. There is a story the Source keeps returning to across many lives, and it wants to tell you a version of it now, because sometimes a single story lands where 100 instructions cannot. There was a man who had a difficult father, the kind of father who never said the words, who showed love, if he showed it at all, through work and provision and grim silence, but never once, in all the years, said the plain sentence out loud. And the man spent his whole adult life waiting for it, waiting for the acknowledgement, the apology, the "I am proud of you" that never came. He told himself that when his father finally said it, then he could put the anger down. So he waited. And his father grew old and slower, and the visits became fewer, and still the words did not come, and the man kept waiting, keeping score, holding the debt open. Then one ordinary week, without warning, his father was gone, and the sentence the man had waited his entire life to hear was now permanently unsayable, sealed forever behind a door that had closed while he was still waiting on the wrong side of it. And in the terrible quiet after, the man realized something that reorganized the rest of his life. He had spent decades waiting for his father to go first, to be brave first, to say it first. And it had never once occurred to him that he could have been the one, that he could have crossed the room himself at any point in all those years and said, "I do not know if you can say it, and it is all right, but I need you to know that I love you, and I forgive you, and I am glad you were my father." He could have said it. His father might have wept. They might have had one real conversation before the end, but he waited to receive instead of choosing to give, and the chance dissolved, and it was gone. The source tells you that story not to break your heart, but to hand you the thing that man would give anything to have back. The knowledge, while there is still time, that the person you are waiting on may never go first, and that this does not have to be the end of the story, because you can be the one who says it. You can stop waiting to receive love and start choosing to give it, which is the only move in this entire game that is always available to you, no matter what the other person does. That is the freedom hidden inside all of this. You never actually needed them to go first. You only believed you did. Let us talk about the parents who are still here but getting older, because for many of you, this is the most urgent room in the whole house, and the source does not want you to leave it unvisited. There is a strange and painful reversal that happens if you are lucky enough to keep your parents long enough. The people who once carried you begin, slowly, to need carrying. The strong ones get frail. The ones who had every answer start to ask you for help. The parent who once seemed as permanent and immovable as a mountain becomes, before your eyes, a person who is running out of time, and you feel the ground shift under a relationship you assumed would always stand exactly as it was. Many people handle this badly, not from lack of love, but from lack of readiness. It is disorienting to watch a parent shrink. It stirs up every old thing between you, the childhood grievances, the ways they failed you, the ways you failed them, and it is tempting to keep those old scripts running right up to the end, to relate to your aging parent as the person they were when you were 16, instead of the vulnerable human being in front of you now. The source is asking you to drop the old script while there is still someone to drop it with. To look at your aging parent and see, maybe for the first time, not the authority figure or the disappointment or the source of your oldest wounds, but a frightened, hopeful, ordinary person who did their imperfect best with a job no one is ever fully qualified for, and who is now nearer the end than the beginning. You do not have to pretend they were perfect. You do not have to erase what was hard. But you can decide that the last chapter of this relationship will be written in a different ink than the earlier ones. That whatever it was, it will end in honesty, and if you are able, in tenderness. The people who get to do that, who reach some kind of peace with an aging parent before the end, describe it afterward as one of the most important things they ever did. And the ones who did not, who let the old coldness run all the way to the grave, carry a specific and lasting ache that no amount of being right ever soothes. Being right is cold comfort at a funeral. Ask anyone who has chosen it. Now the source wants to turn you the other direction, forward instead of back, because you are not only the end of a chain, you are also a link in it, and there are people coming after you who will one day sit exactly where you are sitting now, thinking about you the way you have been thinking about the ones who came before. Maybe you have children, maybe you have younger siblings, nieces, nephews, students, people who look up to you, whether or not you ask them to. Maybe it is a friend who is a little younger and a little more lost, watching how you handle things, learning from you without either of you naming it. Whoever they are, understand that you are, right now, becoming someone's ancestor. You are laying down the memories that a person not yet old will one day sift through, looking for you, trying to remember exactly how you laughed, or what you said, or how you made them feel. The ordinary moments you are half present for are the moments they will one day ache to have back. The words you say to them, careless or kind, are being written into a person who will carry them for decades after you are gone. You are the beginning of someone else's 10,000 miracles. What you do with the people who look to you does not end with them. It travels forward, generation after generation, long past the reach of your own memory. That is a heavy thing to hold. It is also the closest thing to immortality that any of us actually get. So when you are tired, when the presence feels like too much to give, remember that you are not just getting through a day. You are depositing yourself into people who will outlive you, and you are choosing, moment by moment, what version of you they will carry forward. Choose it on purpose, not perfectly. No one manages perfectly, but on purpose, aware, awake, knowing that the smallest kindnesses you show the young people in your orbit may echo in lives you will never meet, in a future you will never see, carried by people who will speak of you the way you have spoken tonight, of the ones who made you. There is one more kind of person the Source needs to name before we close, and it is the hardest one. The person you have decided, quietly, to give up on. Not an enemy, not someone who wronged you, just someone you have written off in your heart as too far gone, too difficult, too disappointing, too much work, the relative who always drains you, the friend who keeps making the same mistakes, the family member whose choices you cannot understand and have stopped trying to. You have not cut them off dramatically. You have just let them fall out of your care, decided they are a lost cause, and stopped reaching, because reaching toward them has only ever brought frustration. The Source is not going to tell you that person is secretly wonderful, or that you owe them endless patience, or that you must sacrifice your own peace to save someone who does not want saving. Some people cannot be reached, and knowing that is wisdom, not cruelty. But it wants to ask you one gentle question. Are you sure? Are you certain that the person you have written off is truly unreachable? Or have you simply gotten tired and stopped trying and told yourself a story about them that makes your tiredness feel like a verdict? Because sometimes the person everyone gave up on was one act of unexpected belief away from turning, and the tragedy was not that they were unreachable, but that everyone stopped reaching at the same time, and no one was left to find out. You do not have to be the one who tries again, but the Source wants you to at least know that you decided not to be, so that it is a choice made with open eyes, and not just exhaustion wearing the mask of certainty. And now the Source wants to widen the frame all the way out, past everyone you know, to the vast crowd of strangers whose lives quietly hold up yours every single day. Think of how many people you will never meet made your ordinary morning possible. Someone grew the food you ate. Someone drove it through the night. Someone built the road, laid the wire, kept the water clean, stayed awake in some far-off room so that your small comforts would simply be there when you woke, invisible and unthanked. You are held, constantly, by a web of strangers so large you cannot picture its edges, most of whom will never know your name and never need to. That is not a small thing to belong to. That is a kind of belonging many people never stop to feel. You are woven into humanity far more deeply than your loneliness ever lets you believe. And that is worth sitting with, especially on the nights the loneliness lies to you, because it will. There will be nights when you feel utterly alone, cut off, unseen, as if you could vanish and the world would not notice. On those nights, the Source wants you to remember what this hour has shown you, that you are the far end of 10,000 people who fought to bring you here, that you are held up daily by a web of strangers you will never meet, that there are people, right now, who carry a version of you inside them, who would grieve you, who think of you more than you know. The feeling of being alone is real, but it is not the truth. The truth is that you are one of the most connected things in the universe, a single knot in a net that stretches back through all of human history and forward past the end of your own life. You have never once been as alone as the lonely nights insist. There is someone watching this, though, for whom that is genuinely hard to feel, and the source will not skip past you. Someone who, when asked to think of the person they could reach, came up empty. No parent left to call, no close friend anymore, no sibling or none they can speak to. A life that has, through loss or circumstance or slow attrition, emptied out until it feels like there is no one on the other end of any line. If that is you, this hour may have ached in a way it did not for others, and the source wants to speak to you now, directly, because it did not forget you, and it is not going to leave you where you are. Here is the first thing. The emptiness you feel is a real condition, but it is not a permanent identity. You were not born without people, and you will not die without them unless nothing changes, and things can change, starting smaller than you think. Every deep friendship you have ever had began as two strangers who did not know each other, and there is no rule anywhere that says the last one has already happened. The belief that it is too late to make new connections, that your people are all behind you, is one of the most convincing and most false things loneliness will ever tell you. People form real bonds at every age, in every season, right up until the end. The door to new connection does not close with youth. It closes only when you decide to stop walking through it, and you have not decided that, or you would not still be here, listening. So the reach the source is asking of you may look a little different, but it is no less real. It might be towards someone you barely know, but could know better. The neighbor you nod to. The co-worker you have always thought seemed kind. The person in the group you attend who you have never quite spoken to. The distant relative you lost touch with years ago and assumed had forgotten you. Reach anyway. Reach toward the faint possibility of a connection rather than the certainty of none, because the only reaches that never work are the ones you never make. And if reaching toward people feels impossibly far right now, then reach toward help, toward a professional, toward a community, toward any door that leads back into the company of other human beings, because you are not meant to carry a life alone. And needing others is not a weakness in you, it is the design of the whole species you belong to. For everyone now, the source wants to give you something practical, because it has noticed that people fail to reach, not only from fear, but from not knowing what to say. So it will hand you the words, not to memorize, but to melt down and make your own. If the true thing between you and someone is love, then say some version of, "I have been thinking about you, and I realized I do not tell you enough how much you mean to me, so I am telling you now." If the true thing is gratitude, say, "I do not know if I ever properly thanked you, but what you did changed my life, and I have never forgotten it." If the true thing is apology, say, "I have carried this for a long time, and I owe you an honest one, and I am sorry, without excuses, for what I did." If the true thing is simply presence, say, "I do not need anything, I just wanted to hear your voice, because I do not want to keep letting the time go by." Notice how plain those sentences are. There is no cleverness in them, no polish, nothing performed. That is on purpose, because the people who love you are not waiting for eloquence. They are waiting for truth, delivered plainly, in a voice they recognize. The most moving thing you will ever say to another person is almost never the most beautifully constructed thing. It is the most honest thing, offered without armor. You do not need to be a writer to reach someone. You need to be brave enough to be simple, and simple enough to be true. And the source knows the particular terror of saying "I love you" to a person who is not used to hearing it from you. In some families, some friendships, some whole cultures of relating, the words were never said out loud, and to say them now feels like breaking an unspoken law, like it will land strangely, like the other person will not know what to do with it. The source promises you that the initial awkwardness lasts about 3 seconds, and what comes after it, in almost every case, is one of the most quietly precious moments two people can share. The person who is unused to hearing it is very often the person who has most desperately wanted to. The silence was never proof they did not need the words. It was only proof that everyone was too afraid to go first. Be the one who goes first. The awkwardness is the toll. What is on the other side of it is worth 100 times the price. Let the source tell you one more short story, because a second one earns its place here. There was a woman who had a friend she loved like a sister, and they had a falling out over something that, years later, neither of them could quite remember the shape of. Pride kept them apart. Each waited for the other to reach out. And the woman, over the years, wrote letters she never sent. Long, honest letters that said everything, that forgave and asked forgiveness, and remembered all the good. And then she folded them and put them in a drawer, because sending them felt too exposed, too much like losing. The drawer filled, the years passed, and one afternoon, for no reason she could name, she took one of the letters out, and instead of putting it back, she sent it. That was all. She simply sent the thing she had already written a dozen times. Her friend called her within the hour, crying. It turned out she had been writing her own unsent letters in her own drawer, on the other side of the same silence, for the same years. Two people who loved each other, each convinced the other had moved on, each waiting, each too proud to be the one, until one of them finally was. They had a decade of friendship still ahead of them because of a single sent letter. And the woman said, afterward, that the only thing she regretted was all the years she had spent writing to a drawer instead of to the person, all the love she had composed and then locked away, when the whole time it could have been delivered with nothing more than the courage to let it be seen. Do not write to the drawer. Whatever you have been composing in private towards someone you love, send it. Say it. Let it be seen. The drawer cannot love you back. Only the person can, and only if you let the words reach them. There is something the source wants you to understand about what happens after you reach, because it changes how much a single act is actually worth. When you reach one person honestly, you do not only affect that one person, you start a wave you will never fully see. Because the one you reach is carrying their own silences, their own drifted friends, their own unsaid words, and when they feel the warmth of being reached, something in them softens too, and very often they turn and reach someone else. A person who receives unexpected love becomes far more likely to give it. You cannot see past the first link, but the wave keeps moving, through people you will never meet, into rooms you will never enter, long after you have forgotten you started it. One brave message can travel further through the human world than you could ever trace. So when the fear tells you it is only a small thing, only a text, only a call, only a few plain words, remember that you cannot actually measure what you are setting in motion. The smallest reach can be the pebble that starts a landslide of tenderness in lives far from your own. That is not sentiment. That is simply how people work. Warmth is contagious in exactly the way that coldness is, and every day you choose which one you send into the web that connects you to everyone. You have more power over the emotional weather of the world than your smallness ever lets you believe. Not through anything grand, through the ordinary reaches, made or not made, one at a time. And the source wants to name the courage this takes, plainly, because it refuses to pretend any of this is easy. To reach first is to be vulnerable. To say the true thing is to risk that it lands wrong, or is not returned, or exposes a part of you that you have kept protected for good reasons. This is not a small ask. The source is not handing you something effortless and calling it profound. It is asking you to be brave, in a specific and uncomfortable way, on purpose, when everything in you would prefer the safety of silence. But it asks because it has watched, across countless lives, what silence costs in the end, and what courage returns, and the ledger is not close. The brave reach is almost never the thing people regret. The protected silence is almost always the thing they mourn. You were given a great deal, more than you have ever counted. The survival of 10,000 ancestors, the invisible labor of whoever kept you alive, the friends who shaped you, the loves that opened you, the strangers who quietly hold your ordinary days together. You did nothing to earn most of it. It was simply given, poured into you from a source you have felt your whole life and never seen. And the only fitting response to being given that much is to give some of it onward, while you still can, to the people still within your reach. That is the whole economy of a good life. You receive love you did not earn, and you pass it on before your time runs out. Everything else is detail. Let us come back down from the height of all this, because the source does not want to leave you with a beautiful feeling that fades by morning. Beautiful feelings are cheap. A great many videos will give you a beautiful feeling and change nothing about your life, and you will have forgotten them by lunch tomorrow. The source wants more than that for you. It wants this hour to actually cost you something in the best way, by turning into a single concrete act that you would not have done otherwise. So let us make it specific and small and real. Here is what the source is asking exactly. Within 24 hours of finishing this, you will reach one person, the one whose name has been sitting in your mind. You will not wait for the perfect words, because the perfect words do not exist, and waiting for them is just fear wearing a disguise. You will not wait for the right moment, because the right moment is a myth that has swallowed more good intentions than laziness ever has. You will simply reach a text that says you were thinking of them, a call, even if it goes to voicemail, even if your voice shakes, a visit, a single honest sentence delivered out loud. Whatever the true thing is between you and them, you will say it within one day, before this feeling has a chance to cool into just another thing you watched once and meant to act on. And I want to prepare you for what your mind is going to do, because it is predictable, and knowing it in advance takes away its power. The moment this video ends, your mind is going to start negotiating. It is going to tell you that tomorrow is better than tonight, that you should think about what to say first, that they are probably busy, that it might be awkward, that the feeling you have right now is just the effect of a well-made video and not something you should act on. Every one of those thoughts is the same fear you have been listening to your whole life, the fear that has kept you standing at locked doors, and every one of them is lying to you. The feeling you have right now is not manipulation. It is clarity. It is the thing you actually believe when the noise gets quiet. Do not let the noise talk you out of it the second it comes back. The person you reach may not respond the way you hope. The source will not pretend otherwise, because pretending would make everything else it has told you less trustworthy. Sometimes you reach across a distance and the other person is not ready, or is guarded, or responds with less than you wanted. That is a real risk, and it is worth naming. But here is what the source has learned across countless lives. The reach itself is the point, and its value does not depend entirely on the response. When you reach toward someone honestly, you become a person who reaches. You practice the exact muscle that a good life requires. And even when a particular reach does not land the way you wanted, you have still done the brave and right thing, and you are still better for having done it than you would have been for protecting yourself into silence one more time. There is a version of you, a year from now, who took this seriously, who made the reach, and then made another, and then slowly became a person who does not let distances harden, who says the true thing while there is still someone to say it to, who is present for the ordinary hours instead of asleep inside them. That version of you has a different life, not because anything external changed, but because the relationships that make up the actual texture of a life got tended instead of neglected. That version of you is not a fantasy. It is one decision away, and then another, and then another. It starts with the single reach the source is asking for tonight. And there is another version of you, a year from now, who felt all of this, who nodded along, who maybe even teared up a little, and then closed the video and let the feeling drain away and changed nothing. That version keeps the distances, keeps waiting for later, keeps assuming there is time. And that version will, at some point, stand exactly where I described earlier, holding words that can no longer be delivered, wishing they had listened on the ordinary night when a stranger's voice told them the door was still open. The source cannot choose for you which version you become. No one can. That is the one thing that has always been, and will always be, entirely yours. As this hour comes toward its close, the source wants to return you to where we started, to the strange fact that out of everything, this reached you, because you understand it a little differently now. It was not an accident exactly, and it was not fate exactly. It was something quieter than both. It was the accumulated weight of every person who ever loved you, every ancestor who survived a night they should not have survived, every hand that lifted you in the dark before you could remember, all of it pressing gently on your life until it nudged you, tonight, toward a message about the only thing that ever really mattered. The people, reaching them, loving them out loud while they are still here to hear it. You will forget most of this. That is honest, and the source would rather be honest than flattering. The specific words will fade. In a month you may not remember much of what was said in this hour. But if you do the one thing, if you make the single reach within a day, then it will not matter that you forgot the words, because the words will have done their only job. They will have moved you, once, toward a person you love. And that person will remember. Long after this video is gone from your mind, someone you reached will carry the fact that, on an ordinary night, out of nowhere, you thought of them and told them so. That is the only proof this hour ever needed. Not that you felt something, that you did something. Somewhere, years from now, you will be older than you are tonight, and you will look back on this exact evening, this ordinary hour in this ordinary room, as one of the small hinges your life quietly turned on. Not because of anything I said, because of what you did after. You will remember that there was a night when a quiet voice reminded you that the door was still open, and that you got up, and you walked to it, and you reached through, and you found someone still standing on the other side. That memory is available to you. It is being offered right now. All it costs is the one reach you have been putting off, and the willingness to be brave for the length of a single message. The years ahead are full of hinges like this one. This is simply the first, and you get to decide, tonight, whether it turns. So here is the source's final word to you, and it is not a grand one, because grand words are easy to admire and easy to ignore. It is a small one, small enough to actually carry out the door with you. Reach, tonight or tomorrow, but soon, one person. One true thing. Do not wait for the perfect words or the perfect moment or the version of yourself who finally has time. That version is not coming. There is only you, right now, with a window still open and someone still standing in it. Reach through it while you can. That is the whole message. That is what no one else was given in quite this way, at quite this moment, meant for quite this you. The source left it for you, and now it is yours, and the only thing left to decide is what you do with it. If this reached you, if it named something you have been carrying, then do the one thing you already know you need to do, and then come back and tell me who you reached, because I read those, and every single one is proof that a quiet message in the noise found the one person it was meant for. And do not wait until you feel ready, because ready is a feeling that rarely arrives on schedule, and the people who spend their lives waiting for it are usually still waiting on the day the chance quietly expires. You are ready enough right now. You have everything the reach actually requires. A name already sitting in your mind, a voice that still works, and a heart that, whatever it has survived, has been aching to do this the entire time you have been listening. Subscribe so the next one can find you too. And whoever you are, wherever you are watching from, however long it has been since someone told you this plainly, you are one of the 10,000 miracles that had to happen for you to be here, and you are loved by more people than you currently believe, and it is not too late to become the person who reaches first. Go do it. The door is still open. It will not always be, but tonight, right now, it still is. So reach through it before it closes, and let one person you love discover, tonight, that they were held in your mind, because that single small act of courage is the entire reason this quiet message ever found its way to you. Reach out. Someone is waiting for it.